Looking at his lonely, cold, and miserable aunt sitting there, Harooqi didn't hesitate. He pulled out the Cupid's sword, the legendary weapon that can make anyone fall in love, and hugged the seductive, curvy aunt tightly. As the glowing red sword slowly melted into her body, her eyes changed. She instantly fell completely in love with him. But all of this was revenge. Ever since Harooqi's parents died, he was dumped on his aunt and uncle's family, and for 10 whole years, they treated him worse than a dog, forcing him to do all the dirtiest, hardest chores while his younger cousins mocked him daily, and school kids laughed like he was a living joke. Day after day of suffering finally broke him. So one day, he climbed to the rooftop, ready to end his pathetic life. He jumped. He really did. All he wanted was to reunite with his parents in death. But surprise, before hitting the ground, he suddenly came back to his senses, floating midair, held by an angel. For a second, he thought he had died and gone to heaven. But the angel calmly told him, "I caught you in the last second before impact." Harooqi was furious and told the angel to just drop him, but the angel flat out refused. "I'm here to bring you happiness," he said. As a special class angel, he had to give Harooqi a reason to live. So with a smile, the angel flew him to a rooftop and said, "To find hope, you need two things, love and freedom." Then he showed off his wings, pure white, powerful, and fast enough to fly anywhere. "This," he said, "is freedom." And then came love. Suddenly, red light glowed in the angel's hand and a magical red arrow appeared. "This is the angel's arrow," he said. "Anyone struck by it, man, woman, old, young, will fall in love immediately." He told Harooqi to choose one person to love and live for. But Harooqi, grinning like a madman, said, "I want them all." The angel looked confused, then chuckled and agreed. Harooqi was stunned. Did that actually work? Before he could blink, the angel threw 3 glowing halos from his head, and boom, they landed perfectly on Harooqi. He panicked and tried pulling them off, but the angel said, "Nope, they're fused to you now. These halos contain the powers of love and freedom I just explained." Harooqi asked, "Won't people notice?" The angel replied, "Don't worry, normal people can't see them. Only those with angel powers can." That's when Harooqi realized there are others like him who've met angels too. But the angel didn't let him dig too deep yet. Instead, he told Harooqi to try flying. "Just imagine wings," he said. Harooqi did, and boom, the halo on his neck lit up, and a pair of flawless angel wings grew out of his back. With one flap, he zoomed into the sky like a missile. Soon, he got the hang of flying and was soaring through the endless sky, completely enchanted by the beauty around him. It felt like a dream, so magical it made him cry. Looking down at the world below, he saw the green buildings and suddenly remembered his first love. Thinking of how useless he used to be, he swore this time he would live happily, no matter what. With this power, he could get anything, food, money, whatever, easy. But wait, why would an angel say stuff like this? Isn't that demonic? But the angel explained, his aunt's family were the real demons. Harooqi was shocked. What? They killed his parents? He couldn't believe it. Those 2 monsters destroyed his happy home? Furious, he rushed back and fired the red arrow at his aunt. As she fell under its spell, he asked coldly, "Did you and uncle kill my parents?" Terrified, she broke down and blamed it all on her husband. Harooqi stood frozen in shock. Just then, his uncle woke up from the noise, and his aunt spilled everything. She confessed she tampered with their car to steal the family's wealth and killed the whole family just to get the insurance money. Raising Harooqi? Just part of the plan. His uncle exploded in rage and punched her to the floor. Harooqi, crushed by the truth, fell to his knees crying, why couldn't she have been the one to die instead? But no one expected what came next. His aunt suddenly shoved her husband away, picked up a fruit knife, and slashed down hard. Blood spilled. She collapsed. And just like that, the angel descended from the sky and took her soul to heaven. Harooqi stood there stunned. Just like that, she died. He was still alive. And now, he promised to live happily. Not just for himself, but for his parents too. That was exactly what the angel came for, to help him find happiness. "I am Nasty's angel," he said. Harooqi may have the ugliest face in the world, but now he had 8 girlfriends. Yes, 8, and every one of them was a top girl group idol. Why? Because he had the legendary Cupid's sword, and he even bragged about it on national TV. But this move totally exposed his identity. Nasty told him, there are 13 people on Earth chosen by God. Each one receives an angel's blessing and sword, but only one among them will be selected to inherit God's position. As one of the 2 top-tier angels, Nasty held the special white ring. Whoever gets struck by it instantly comes back to life. One weapon controls love, the red sword. The other controls life and death, the white ring. That's when Harooqi finally understood. He might have just stepped into a world he can't turn back from. Now that Harooqi had an angel by his side, it totally explained why this so-called ugly dude suddenly had such crazy luck. But justice was boiling inside him. He couldn't stand seeing someone abusing their angelic power, so he made up his mind. He had to save those poor innocent idols. Meanwhile, over in a car, a guy named Konkichi was straight up snoring like a wild boar. Just as he was getting all cozy with his idol harem, bam, the door suddenly burst open and a man in full armor stepped in. No talking, no warning. He raised his right hand and a glowing white sword appeared. While Konkichi froze like a deer in headlights, the white sword slowly merged into his body. Turns out, this armored guy had one goal, the red sword in Konkichi's possession. The next day, Harooqi heard the news that Konkichi had been killed, though the cause was still unknown. Not Not that he cared much, it just saved him the trouble of dealing with that guy himself. But while Harooqi was trying to figure out what his new life would be like, suddenly, a breaking news alert snapped him back to reality. A vicious criminal was threatening to kill a hostage every 5 minutes unless he got cash in a helicopter. The scene was chaos. 200 police officers stood frozen, not knowing what to do. And just when it seemed hopeless, a mysterious figure in full mecha armor walked into view. Most people thought it was some cosplay nut, but Harooqi knew better. This wasn't some random weirdo. This was one of the god candidates. And to take control of the situation, he whipped out his red sword and used it on the police, forcing them all to obey him. Then he walked straight toward the criminal. The thug, running his mouth, didn't stand a chance. The armored man fired the red sword directly into his chest, and just like that, the guy dropped to his knees and begged to surrender. But before anyone could relax, another thug popped up from behind and unloaded a hail of bullets. The armored man dodged effortlessly, and those bullets accidentally killed the thug's own teammate. Watching this whole mess, the urban vigilante, known to some as the City Avenger, was furious. He zipped across the scene in a flash, dodged a machine gun like it was nothing, and fired a white arrow that instantly ended the attacker's life. That's when Harooqi realized this guy wasn't acting alone. He had a special class angel backing him, and this so-called justice warrior, he was proudly making speeches on live television. Harooqi stared in disbelief. Was he declaring war on the other god candidates? Harooqi quickly warned Nasti to stay away from him, because having an angel nearby would only confirm his identity as a divine successor. And if he really wanted to pursue happiness, dying now was not an option. But what Harooqi didn't know was that his identity had already been completely exposed. Once home, he questioned Nasti about the angel hierarchy. Angels were divided into 3 ranks: special class, first class, and second class. Special class angels, like Nasti, had the highest powers. First class angels had both wings and red swords. Second class only had one or the other, and there were only 3 special class angels total. If someone wanted to become a god, they would definitely start taking out the other god candidates. Nasti suggested he stay home to avoid trouble, but Harooqi instantly refused. After all, he had finally gotten into his dream high school. Besides, locking himself indoors wasn't exactly a good way to chase happiness. He believed that as long as Nasti stayed out of sight, no one would figure out his god candidate status. But little did he know, the terrifying vigilante everyone feared was also a high schooler, and he had full confidence in becoming a god. The next day, Harooqi put on his uniform and prepared for school. Nasti reminded him to call if anything happened. No matter how far, he'd be there instantly. But of course, trouble came fast. Just as Harooqi was daydreaming about his next 3 years of school, a feather floated down in front of him. He looked up and saw an angel, wings out, floating in the air with its back turned. Instantly, Harooqi guessed it might be a warning from the vigilante. To avoid being exposed, he forced himself to stay calm and walk forward normally. But suddenly, the angel zipped right in front of his face. This winged butt angel was so insanely powerful, just one look froze Harooqi solid. Then it teleported straight to his face. Cold sweat dripped down his back. He didn't expect a god candidate to be right here in his school. When he turned around, he was stunned. It was none other than his dream girl, Koharu. The very next moment, she shot him with the red sword. That's when he realized Koharu was also a god candidate, and the red sword, it hit him hard. All the feelings he'd bottled up came bursting out. Koharu didn't really want to do it, but to win this game, she had to control Harooqi. Once she found out he also had angel powers, she ordered him to wait in her bedroom. Haruki's brain short-circuited with happiness. Without hesitation, he flew over. This was his first time entering a girl's room, a sacred land full of that sweet girly scent. He couldn't believe it. He was actually in Koharu's room, waiting for her. With the red sword's effect, his mind was full of her voice. Soon, she returned. She had assumed Haruki's angel was first class at best, but nope, he had a special class one. But with the vigilante's white mirror attack, second class angel Koharu had no way to dodge it. Harooqi had to become her wings and protect her. So under the angel's witness, they formed a contract of eternal loyalty. Later, during their flight training, they both opened their hearts, solving Koharu's no wings issue once and for all. After flying, they returned to her room. Suddenly, a news alert popped up. City Avenger had taken down another group of criminals. To the public, he looked like a hero, but in reality, this guy was dangerous. He was faking justice to lure out the other god candidates and win over the media and police. Koharu realized she might be his next target. Someone had to stop him. Luckily, Naste showed up just in time to break her impulsive thoughts and warned her. If Harooqi died, both the wings and the sword would pass to her. But if the vigilante died, since Harooqi was still under the control of the red arrow, he would definitely, without hesitation, hand everything over to Koharu when the time came. Seeing that his scheme had been completely exposed, rebel god candidate Level had no choice but to admit defeat. But thankfully, both Harooqi and Koharu actually liked each other, so instead of continuing to fight, they decided to team up against the biggest threat of all, the so-called hero, City Avenger. 2.5 weeks flew by, and even though the red arrow's effect had worn off, Harooqi still looked like a love-struck idiot. You could could tell the guy truly liked Koharu. Even if he was a bit shy, he was honestly grateful to have been hit by the red arrow, because it gave him the push he needed to express his feelings. From his perspective, someone like City Avenger, who threatened their happiness, had no right to become a god. Harooqi swore he would protect the trust others had placed in him. But just then, the TV screen suddenly lit up with another live broadcast from City Avenger himself, and this time, he shocked everyone by saying he wanted to solve this battle peacefully. He desperately hoped to have a dialogue with the other 11 candidates. To most people, it sounded like a joke. City Avenger then announced the meeting location, 2.5 days later at Shinpu Dome. While others strongly opposed the idea, Harooqi insisted on attending. He believed the only way to uncover the guy's tricks was to see it for himself. 2.5 days later, Harooqi arrived at the stadium on time. All the remaining candidates showed up too. Koharu reminded him not to look up. If they acted like they couldn't see the angels, they could hide their god candidate status. Plus, they'd left their angels at home for safety. Everything seemed perfect. The countdown from the crowd began, and suddenly, 2 figures appeared in the sky, unleashing a rapid-fire barrage of attacks towards City Avenger. As the explosion roared, the hero made a flashy entrance. Cheers erupted until a dark figure zoomed past, followed by 2 more people, one in yellow, one in blue. Both pointed their red swords straight at City Avenger and fired. But something strange happened. The swords couldn't pierce him. Harooqi was confused, but then realized City Avenger had already been struck by a red arrow. According to the rules, a person can only be controlled by 1 red arrow every 33 days, so the second shot just bounced off. This meant that guy wasn't even the real City Avenger. Harooqi guessed the real one must have dropped that decoy from above and escaped. Yellow warned Blue to stay alert. They couldn't be sure if this was another god candidate. As the fake slowly opened his mouth to talk, the 2 refused to listen, assuming it was another of City Avenger's traps. He claimed he wanted a friendly conversation, but neither of them bought it. To stop this manipulative faker from becoming a god, they swore to take him out here and now. They thought they had it all figured out, that City Avenger used a decoy to bait god candidates, then sniped them from behind with arrows. But that only works if there's one target. Firing 2 arrows at once requires 2 meters of separation, and each has a max range of 31.6 meters. Right then, City Avenger popped up on the big screen, praising Blue's theory, but with a twist. He corrected them. What they were seeing was just a random person who had been shot by one of his arrows in advance. If you prep arrows ahead of time, timing doesn't matter. Plus, the 2 were trapped in a perfectly pinned position, no escape. So City Avenger said, "Fine, I'll just come down and fight." Desperate, Yellow and Blue decided to interrogate the decoy for information. But just as they were about to leave, a little girl appeared from the sky begging them to take her away because City Avenger was terrifying. She said she had no arrows, only wings, but promised to help however she could. Yellow was suspicious. Maybe she was brainwashed, but Blue couldn't bear to reject her. Of course, the rule was that you had to be shot with the red arrow to join their side. The girl quickly agreed, but the moment she approached, City Avenger swooped in like a vulture and intercepted her. Before anyone could react, he stabbed her with a red arrow. But before he could flex or monologue, Blue lunged at him, yet City Avenger dodged with ease and vanished, reappearing on the screen again. Now it was 2 versus 2. They needed reinforcements fast. City Avenger sent out an invitation to the audience. Anyone who got hit by a red arrow could join. To everyone's surprise, 2 god candidates in pink and green stood up from the audience and said they only had arrows, no wings. For safety, Yellow aimed at them just in case, but turns out it wasn't a trap. They both got hit in the chest by red arrows, confirming they weren't under City Avenger's control. Meanwhile, the decoy on the field switched places with the real City Avenger. Now, 4 people stood on the anti-City Avenger side. It looked like a full-blown war was about to erupt. Seeing they had the advantage, Harooqi debated whether he should step in, but before he could decide, the little girl appeared on the screen, and the real City Avenger was already behind them. He raised his white arrow and aimed right at them, but before he could finish, one of the others got nailed by a red arrow, and the balance flipped again. Pink and green's red arrows lost their effect, because they were just mercenaries hired with cash. It had all been set up in advance by City Avenger. As expected, he absorbed the wings and arrows from the fallen girl, and Harooqi's heart filled with dread. The evil City Avenger now had overwhelming power. To test how deep the red arrow's control could go, he even ordered the girl and Yellow to hug each other, threatening them with the white arrow. Yellow backed off in shame. The girl dropped to the ground, terrified, crying and begging for help, and now Harooqi's heart was in complete chaos, because while the girl looked pitiful, he knew he couldn't afford to expose the wings hidden on his back. Because Harooqi's identity was now at risk of exposure, along with his mission, he knew one thing for sure: he absolutely could not die. That's when the little girl's angel finally showed up and begged City Avenger to let this harmless, powerless girl go. But how could the so-called hero, who was now clearly drunk on his own madness, back down now? As the girl screamed in pain, her cries tearing through the air, Koharu's patience finally snapped. The little girl had thought she could use cuteness to survive, but she didn't expect City Avenger to be a devil wearing a justice mask. He was using her as bait, turning her screams into a trap to lure out the other god candidates and wipe them out all at once. Harooqi couldn't stand watching anymore. Just Just as he was about to rush in and fight City Avenger one-on-one, Nasty showed up just in time to stop him. But even though Nasty stopped Harooqi's impulsive move, his emotional reaction gave away his identity. City Avenger's eyes locked onto Nasty, and he instantly realized his plan was ruined. Without hesitation, he stabbed the white arrow into the little girl's body, killing her on the spot. Just like that, she was gone. Though City Avenger hadn't achieved his full plan, he had successfully reduced his enemies by 3. Nasty said she didn't care about the other candidates, as long as her own chosen one was safe. But this incident only proved how dangerous City Avenger really was. Even though Nasty tried to act tough and warn him with words, the truth was, they were nowhere near strong enough to defeat him right now. All she could do was signal to the remaining god candidates in the arena to retreat immediately, including Harooqi and Koharu. Meanwhile, City Avenger collected the wings and red sword from the fallen girl, growing even stronger. Back home, Harooqi fell into a deep pit of guilt. He felt completely useless, but Labelle comforted him, saying, "Don't blame yourself. Showing up in that moment would have been suicide." Then Harooqi did something none of them expected. He declared that he would kill City Avenger. Everyone was stunned. But come on, someone who couldn't even feel pure hatred. How could he talk about killing someone? That's when Koharu said maybe there was a smarter way. If they could form an alliance with the other god candidates, maybe they'd stand a chance. Suddenly, a voice agreed from outside, shocking the whole room. Harooqi and Koharu rushed to the balcony, flung the curtain open, and there stood a god candidate who had been watching them this whole time. Harooqi raised his red sword, ready to force him into submission, but the man stopped them. "Go ahead, shoot me with the red arrow," he said. "That's the only way to prove I'm not being controlled." Harooqi blinked in confusion, but Nasty stepped in and said, "It's okay, he's telling the truth." They invited him in since they wanted allies, not mindless slaves. The man was genuinely thankful and without hesitation explained his situation. He had cancer. It had spread everywhere. Doctors gave him 3 months. Then, out of nowhere, an angel appeared, not to take him to the afterlife, but to give him one last chance at life. He could have given up, but he thought about his family and broke down in tears. He entered the god selection battle without hesitation, but this wasn't simple. He not only had to outlast 12 other god candidates, he also had to face monsters like City Avenger, so he made a bold move. He used the red arrow on a billionaire, collected 200 million yen in cash, and used that money to protect himself no matter what. He didn't care about becoming god, but there was one thing he knew for sure. City Avenger must not win. He wanted to meet the other god candidates, use his own eyes to decide who was worthy of godhood. To find them, he used the red arrow to control 14 detectives and psychologists and sent them to the stadium. That's how he found Harooqi and Koharu. After analyzing the footage the detectives sent, he judged that these two were good people. That's why he came, despite the risk, to talk about teaming up. Harooqi, who had no interest in becoming god, agreed, but only if the man promised to keep fighting, not to give up on life. Abandoning your family without trying, that's just selfish, Harooqi said with tears in his eyes. His sincerity touched the man deeply, and he agreed. Slowly, they all became more comfortable with each other. Turns out, the man was a corporate planner at a fashion company, mainly working in clothing design. To avoid disrupting his personal life, he thought it best to hide his real identity. Harooqi and Koharu had no reason to say no, and strangely, the man's presence brought a new sense of hope to their little team. Meanwhile, just as Harooqi suspected, City Avenger's real identity was a student from an elite noble academy, and the reason he was desperate to become god? He wanted to bring back the girl standing in front of him. Back on Harooqi's side, things remained tense. Besides City Avenger, they still hadn't identified 5 of the other god candidates. One of them, they realized, was the boy in the latest surveillance photo. The man warned them to keep an eye on people who suddenly became rich or showed supernatural abilities. Just then, a news broadcast caught Harooqi's eye. It was about a serial killer on the run, someone who had vanished mysteriously. Both Harooqi and Koharu had the same gut feeling: City Avenger. After all, if someone had wings, plus a knife, killing people would be child's play. Things were getting worse. The girl on TV looked like a popular celebrity on the outside, but secretly, she was a psychopathic killer who targeted female high school students. Every day, more girls died by her blade. Even worse, she escaped juvenile detention 2 days ago, and the staff even smiled while letting her go. Everyone watching the news was shocked. After some discussion, they confirmed it had to be City Avenger who gave her the red arrow and wings. Turns out, wings and swords can be shared with ordinary humans, but only if they're hit with the red arrow first. Once that's done, they get access to those powers for 33 days, which meant for these 33 days, that girl could kill anyone she wanted, and City Avenger could freely hand out wings and red swords to murderers like candy. To become a god, he had clearly lost all sense of morality, and if any god candidate showed up trying to stop one of these killers, they'd be taken out immediately. So clearly, these killers were just bait, used by City Avenger to wipe out his rivals. Keeping someone like that around was a threat to everyone. That's why the older man insisted they had to locate the next killer fast, follow City Avenger's trap patterns, and use the white arrow to end him. But the problem was, the only person holding a white arrow was Harooqi, so all the pressure fell directly onto him. Looking down at the white arrow in his hand, Harooqi, bleeding heart and all, said he didn't want to kill anyone. He wanted to use the red arrow instead, to win without death. Even if City Avenger still had 2 full sets of red arrows left, Harooqi insisted he didn't want to become a killer. That was his unshakable belief. The older man was dumbfounded. This was something even an elementary schooler would understand. To get through to Harooqi, he asked him to imagine a situation where, to save Koharu, he had no choice but to kill City Avenger. But it didn't go as hoped. Seeing Haruki's unstable mindset, the older man said he'd come back tomorrow. And sure enough, the next day, he rushed in, flustered, saying he had found a pattern in the girl killer's crimes. He also brought weapons, knowing only Harooqi had the white arrow. He cocked his custom-built gun, but Harooqi, seeing the weapon, couldn't accept it. He said, "Think of your daughter. Do you want her growing up knowing her dad was a killer?" But the man stood firm. As long as City Avenger roamed free, there would be no tomorrow for anyone. Still, he shifted the topic to the real mission: act fast or more people would die. Just as he predicted, the girl killer had finished off her toys for the day and was now heading out to find her next victim. It was all part of City Avenger's grand plan. As soon as Mesa uploaded her kills online, chaos exploded across the internet. Fear swept the city. Cops rushed to the scene, but they were nothing. Before they could react, Mesa tied them up like puppets and turned them into loyal slaves. Only the chief held any backbone. Then Mesa ordered the bodies dragged away and locked down the area. That was just the beginning of City Avenger's plan. As Harooqi and the others discussed how to fight back, they realized this could be their chance to strike back using the red arrow. The plan? The older man would confront Misa as bait. When City Avenger showed up to kill him, Harooqi would shoot. Whether it was the red arrow or the white arrow, just shoot. With offense handled, defense was next. The man handed Harooqi the company's most advanced armor. He wore heavy gear himself. He told LaBelle and Koharu to stay home and warned Harooqi, "If a fight breaks out, shoot me with the red arrow first. That way I can't be controlled." If City Avenger didn't show, worst case, they had to kill Mesa to prevent more innocent girls from dying. The two launched their mission, but Harooqi was still too soft. He even hesitated at the idea of killing Misa. Meanwhile, the older man appeared before Misa and pointed his gun at her. That's exactly what City Avenger wanted. Harooqi crouched in the shadows, scanning for any sign of the villain. With no sign of him, they were stuck, because who knew what trap he had set? Suddenly, Misa whispered to the man, "Get closer." City Avenger said if someone with wings shows up, we keep them here forever. The man's eyes widened in shock, but it was already too late. City Avenger, watching gleefully, pressed the cursed button on his deadly device. Harooqi was the classic soft-hearted saint, trying to reason with a ruthless serial killer who wore justice as a disguise. Even City Avenger mocked him. And then, boom, the man was blown to pieces. Harooqi could barely process it, but there was a flicker of hope. Amid the smoke, the man's body flew out from the blast. Harooqi dashed forward and caught his unconscious body. Thankfully, the veteran didn't die. He slowly opened his eyes. Harooqi's heart finally stopped pounding. The man said, "Good thing I wore that bomb-proof vest. You almost got me killed, you idiot." He couldn't believe City Avenger could kill without even using the white arrow, but at least Mesa was dead now. No more girls would be harmed. Then, bam, City Avenger appeared behind them, ready to launch a surprise white arrow strike. Harooqi shouted from his soul, "Why? Why do you kill the innocent? Do you know what it feels like to lose someone you love?" But City Avenger, shameless as ever, smiled and said, "Of course I do. I just want to bring my sister back to life." But Harooqi knew this man couldn't be reasoned with. City Avenger coldly declared that today's sacrifice would be the last. Harooqi clenched his fists. "Fine," he said. "No more words." He and the older man prepared for a final showdown, but something felt off. It was 2 against 1, so why wasn't City Avenger running? Clearly, he was confident he could win. That's when he called out his angel, Mesa. She hovered behind him, ready to shield him. The older man didn't flinch. He called for Nasty. Since Nasty was also a special class angel, her presence would trick City Avenger into thinking they were evenly matched. Then he told Harooqi to get his red arrow ready. The plan was simple: draw City Avenger's attention and let Harooqi strike from the shadows. And like clockwork, City Avenger locked onto the older man and issued a threat. He claimed to have planted bombs on a nearby high-rise. "So," he smirked, "will you sacrifice yourselves or let all those innocent people die?" The man didn't believe a word of it. "Bluff," he said, but City Avenger just smiled darker. "Try me. Either way, someone's dying today." Just as City Avenger was about to press the detonation button to trigger the explosion, the older man stopped him and made an offer. "Only one of us walks away alive." City Avenger locked the white arrow on him, and the next second, a rocket blasted toward the old man. Right in that moment of crisis, Harooqi fired his red arrow and redirected the white strike midair, blocking the deadly attack in a way that even the sharp-eyed Bariru couldn't believe. Not even he had seen that trick before. Furious that his plan had once again been ruined, City Avenger tried pressing the button again, but Harooqi exploded with determination, firing back a red arrow with all his might and shouting that he'd rather die than run. Everyone watching was stunned. Harooqi had disrupted City Avenger's plan yet again. Enraged, City Avenger shot a white arrow directly at Harooqi, but even with the blade inches from his face, Harooqi didn't flinch. He blocked blocked it smoothly with his red arrow like it was nothing. The old man stood shocked, and even City Avenger couldn't help but admit Harooqi was becoming a real threat. Attack after attack came his way, but Harooqi didn't back down. He fought toe-to-toe with City Avenger, exchanging glances and strikes like seasoned rivals. But just when it seemed like City Avenger would keep clashing with Harooqi, he suddenly turned to sneak attack the older man, only for Harooqi to block him again with the red arrow, saving the old man's life once more. But strangely, the old man didn't look happy. He sighed, knowing that things were going nowhere. Harooqi's constant defending was admirable but pointless. Even City Avenger looked down on him now for refusing to take the fight seriously. Yet neither could break the stalemate, forcing City Avenger into a direct duel with Harooqi. That finally gave the old man an opening. In a blink, he teleported behind City Avenger, drew his pistol, and unloaded a storm of bullets, briefly stunning him and locking down his movement. It was a god-tier assist. Harooqi dashed in with the red arrow for the final blow, but just as he was about to strike, he saw part of City Avenger's face under the mask and hesitated. That 1 second was all it took. City Avenger slipped away. The old man sighed. It was such a wasted chance. If only the bulletproof vest hadn't stopped the bullets. They could have ended this right there. Knowing it was no longer safe to stay, the two retreated into the sky. Harooqi's reckless style had barely saved his life. Meanwhile, City Avenger had dragged himself to a hospital, wounded but alive thanks to his armor. And before leaving, he made sure to eliminate any loose ends, truly cold-blooded. Meanwhile, the so-called prince only needed to whisper sweet words, and the school beauty offered him her first kiss, and even spent the night with him in the classroom, all thanks to the red arrow. After losing his parents and getting mocked by classmates, he'd once lost all will to live. Ready to end his life, he was chosen as a god candidate and given the Cupid's sword, the power to make anyone fall in love. He used it to fulfill his twisted desires, even targeting his longtime crush. But this guy had a tragic backstory too. From birth, he was cursed with poverty, ugliness, and rejection, ignored by his parents and laughed at by his classmates. He developed intense self-hatred and couldn't even talk to the girl he loved. His mother couldn't handle life and left him, and he almost followed her into the afterlife, until the red sword chose him. Seeing the news about City Avenger reignited his confidence. Listening to the angel describe City Avenger's philosophy, he was in awe. He vowed to meet him one day and be his loyal devil. He watched every broadcast, trained non-stop, and with help from plastic surgery, he transformed completely. From a monster to a heartthrob, girls stared as he walked by. But his social skills hadn't caught up. He didn't know how to talk to people, which crushed him. Still, he swore to become a hero just like City Avenger, even if the world hunted him. But when he saw City Avenger get shot in the head by the old man, he felt helpless rage. He hated those who hurt his idol. He swore revenge, and to become City Avenger's servant no matter the cost. Destiny helped. He overheard City Avenger's real name from a doctor and used that to find a classmate connected to him. Through her, he expressed his desire to be recruited and invited her to the dance studio after school. City Avenger didn't come himself. He sent a decoy, hiding in the shadows. But the guy wasn't dumb. He didn't dare meet City Avenger alone on his turf. The offer was simple. Take out one god candidate as a proof of loyalty, and you're in. And he did it. He found the detective under Rokujidu's control, learned his identity, killed him, and retrieved the red arrow, which returned to the old man. At first, everyone thought it was no big deal, so they called Harooqi and rushed toward their home. But no matter how many times the man tried calling his wife, she didn't pick up. He feared the worst, and just as expected, a god candidate appeared. Worried for his family, the man told Harooqi to stall the attacker while he went inside to search. But no matter how hard he looked, he couldn't find his wife or daughter, only a shredded wedding dress. His heart collapsed in despair. Outside, Harooqi confronted the enemy, but the handsome, transformed follower didn't care. His trap had been set. Meanwhile, the man inside faced the deepest regret of his life, wishing he'd never become a god candidate, and dragged his family into danger. His phone rang. On the screen, City Avenger, grinning. It was over. The man charged out, risking everything, leaving Koharu behind. She picked up the family photo lying on the ground, heartbroken. Not wanting her to suffer more, Level decided to continue leveling up. A young girl gave a silent gesture, and instantly, a man fell in love with her, becoming a hopeless slave to affection. Moments ago, that man was City Avenger's most loyal pawn, and had just succeeded in kidnapping. City Avenger's loyal pawn was just about to turn the old man's wife into another brainwashed servant when, boom, her husband caught her red-handed. But facing both of them head-on, the god candidate enemy showed no fear at all. He had hostages. Seeing his wife and daughter locked up, the old man didn't even hesitate. He rushed into the trap without thinking, completely blind to how obvious it was. City Avenger's strategy really was terrifying. Hostage bait worked like a charm. Meanwhile, Harooqi wrongly assumed the enemy was the third-generation king, a fatal miscalculation that nearly cost him everything. The old man managed to reach the locked room, and knowing time was ticking before City Avenger showed up, Harooqi instantly used the white arrow and shouted for the enemy to release them. But the guy just laughed, calling Harooqi a coward who didn't dare to kill. Harooqi, after struggling, finally fired the white death arrow, but the enemy dodged it easily. Meanwhile, Harooqi couldn't relax because the family family was still trapped and the enemy could be hiding anywhere. The advantage was completely in the enemy's hands. Worse, the old man's bullets couldn't even scratch the reinforced glass armor. And even worse, City Avenger ambushed Harooqi from behind. He was in the worst possible situation. City Avenger could kill the old man anytime, and the old man couldn't even see the fight. City Avenger smugly told Harooqi to give up because 2 against 1 meant nothing to him. But Harooqi wasn't about to abandon his comrade. He chose to live or die together with the old man, which shocked City Avenger. This was suicide, but Harooqi had a plan. He told the old man to put on stealth armor. If they flew fast enough, they'd become invisible to the human eye. They both took off instantly, vanishing from sight. City Avenger sneered. He still believed he would win. Deep down, the enemy candidate actually felt resentment toward the old man for risking everything for family, something he had never felt himself. Still skeptical, City Avenger told his minion to scout ahead while he took a break. Harooqi and the old man flew at max speed, but it couldn't last forever, especially with the old man's stamina wearing thin. That's when Koharu finally arrived. Thanks to Lebel's sincerity, the gods promoted him to a first-class angel, granting him flight and combat ability. After analyzing the scene, Koharu decided to use the red arrow on the enemy. While the enemy scratched his head cluelessly, Koharu fired the arrow straight into him. The moment he turned around and saw Koharu, he was stunned by her charm. His heart almost flipped, but inside, he told himself not to betray City Avenger. How could a mere human compare to the power of a god? Still, Harooqi, sensing something outside, told the old man to wait a bit longer. An opening would appear. Exhausted but still burning with resolve, the old man vowed to survive and protect his family no matter what. City Avenger noticed his underling was acting strange, but it was already too late. The red arrow had done its work. The enemy's heart melted into a puddle. That was love. Dangerous love. Toxic, bone-melting love that spreads like a virus. One touch could rot you from the inside. But the girl, she wasn't scared. She even licked it. Her goal was to wipe out humanity with a mass terror attack. She was so committed, she even installed a chip in her heart that would release the virus upon death. Now she demanded Harooqi and his team become her test subjects to try out her new heart-dissolving venom. Harooqi never imagined such a nightmare, but with the red arrow in place, Koharu begged the enemy to help rescue the trapped couple. Madly in love, he obeyed without question. In one motion, he threw off City Avenger's loyalty and charged toward the glass prison with a twisted angle, using all his strength to break it. City Avenger realized something was off. This was definitely a red arrow betrayal. Furious, he screamed at his minion and swore to kill him. He immediately called for backup, his 4 most loyal goons. This was the moment they'd been trained for. Meanwhile, the mind-controlled servant finally shattered the glass chamber, standing firmly in front of Koharu to protect her. Even against 4 enemies, he was ready to fight for love. Just as the henchmen launched their attack, Harooqi realized the danger and rushed in. Thanks to a well-timed move by the old man's forces, they escaped the prison in time. But even though the numbers were now even, 4 versus 4, City Avenger still had the upper hand in raw power. The old man also had to protect his wife and daughter, while City Avenger had his 2 top generals, Sangbu and Black Wide. Harooqi's side only had that red-arrowed simp and a barely armored exosuit. City Avenger looked them over and sneered. To turn things in their favor, the old man evacuated his wife and daughter first. Then, all the allies shot each other with red arrows. This way, they couldn't be taken over by enemy arrows. With that done, the real fight began. Sangbu whipped out his machine gun and opened fire wildly at the enemy candidate. But with his wings and agility, he dodged with ease. The two clashed in the air, feathers and bullets flying. Even though the enemy could fly at insane speed, Sangbu's bullets didn't stop. Still, for a god candidate, dodging bullets was nothing. Even missiles wouldn't work. But just when Sangbu thought he had landed a hit, Harooqi and Koharu ambushed him from behind. Sangbu lost his balance and got slashed, losing a finger in the process. That single blunder completely ruined him. City Avenger, watching from afar, was furious at his incompetence and immediately ordered Widow Black to deliver a fatal blow. But unexpectedly, she chose to target the one person no one expected, the hesitant, soft-hearted, peace-loving Harooqi. The woman's deadly virus-filled syringe made everyone freeze in panic. No one dared act without her command, and so, following her orders, the group could only watch as Harooqi slowly stepped closer. Just as she raised the needle to strike him, everyone thought it was over. Harooqi was doomed. But at that very second, Harooqi spread his wings wide, and before the woman could even react, he used his white arrow to kill the virus in midair and pin her down in one swift move. 2 birds with 1 shot. No one expected such a sharp counter from the so-called soft-hearted Harooqi. Meanwhile, the old man's body had reached its limit, and he began to fall toward the ground. But still clinging to the last of his strength, he pretended to aim his cannon at City Avenger to distract him, signaling Black Widow to make her move. She unfurled her wings and sent out her needle-like syringes spinning erratically through the air, launching them at Harooqi. Everyone gasped. The virus-laced syringes and the white arrow were all converging on Harooqi at once. Just then, Koharu appeared out of nowhere and blocked the attack for him. But it wasn't enough. Even though Harooqi deflected City Avenger's strike with his white arrow, the needles still came. game. Both were about to die, until Nasty dove in at the last second. For the girl he loved, he was willing to risk it all. But the needle struck him instead, and the virus surged through his body. His flesh began to melt, pus oozed, his skin dissolved. But with his last strength, he took out Black Widow in a heroic one-for-one sacrifice. He saved the girl he loved and completed his mission. Now it was time for the final battle, Harooqi versus City Avenger. This man, full of twisted charm, had once accidentally killed his beloved sister by smashing her head against stone steps, causing brain hemorrhage. It happened right after she had told him about her new love, which he couldn't accept. In their argument, he pushed her from a high platform and her life ended at just 18. But when he picked up her corpse, he became obsessed with her perfect face and swore he wouldn't let anyone defile her. Driven by this sick love, he faked her funeral, dug up her body, and sealed her in a crystal coffin. Whenever he remembered their days together in the West, tears would flow endlessly. Just as he was about to commit suicide and follow her into death, an angel appeared and told him that if he became a god, he could resurrect her. That angel? It was City Avenger himself. To fulfill that twisted dream, he had to defeat Harooqi, and now he was even live-streaming the event. Preaching his mad ideology, he mocked Harooqi as a fool, claiming only higher beings could understand him. He vowed that if he became god, he would eliminate every group on Earth. His madness stunned Harooqi, who now knew for sure this guy was completely insane. Harooqi waited for the perfect moment, and as sunlight broke across the land, he launched his final strike. To City Avenger, such a close-range attack seemed like suicide, but he underestimated Harooqi's speed. Harooqi blocked City Avenger's white arrow with his red one, only to realize the red arrow had no effect. City Avenger had already been hit by someone else's red arrow, and therefore immune. That's why he insisted on a one-on-one fight. He knew no one else could charm him. Harooqi didn't care. He charged with full force, knocking away City Avenger's white arrow and throwing him off balance. This gave him the perfect chance. Harooqi covered City Avenger's eyes with his wings, cutting off his vision so he couldn't use the red arrow. Koharu jumped in to help restrain him. With City Avenger immobilized, the old man stepped forward and opened fire. As bullets tore through his chest, City Avenger let out a blood-curdling scream. The mad villain was finally dead. Meanwhile, another man trembled every time he took a physical test, mumbling strange numbers to calm himself. Though gifted with the strongest brain, his severe social anxiety made it hard to talk to anyone. He'd even pre-calculate grocery bills or slow his jogging pace to avoid attention. This eccentric genius completed 4 years of university in a week, won Nobel Prizes in both literature and physics, yet was always swarmed by strangers and had to rely on medication to manage stress. All he wanted was peace, but every day was a grind. Finally, broken by the weight of life, he decided to end it with a handful of pills. But just before death, an angel appeared. He confessed he didn't want to live. He just wanted to see what comes after death. The angel told him he would understand one day. After the great explosion, the remaining god candidates gathered, hoping to resonate and choose the true god. But Mitani declared his plan: kill all candidates and build a world without gods. Harooqi, on the other hand, believed sacrifice should be minimized. Hope still existed. Their visions clashed. Just as tension peaked, Nakahama stepped forward, volunteering to become God himself, hoping to find a way to reveal the truth to the professor. He flew into the sky, merged with the angel, and erased everyone's memory of the god candidate battle. In the vast, silent realm of the gods, Nakahama fulfilled his wish, but was now under surveillance and unable to contact the professor or reveal what he knew. 6 years passed. Harooqi and Koharu finally stood at the altar, stepping into a peaceful married life. Meanwhile, Mitani still sat alone, tirelessly researching the mysterious red arrow that was left behind, but with no success. Deep down, he was still waiting, hoping Nakahama would someday return and reveal the truth. His old comrades had all moved on, found their happiness, and fulfilled their dreams. But for Mitani, every day was a reminder that more and more people were suffering. Each day, countless humans were choosing to end their lives. And what could a god do? Nothing. He could only observe from above, helpless. That's when the professor's belief hit him hard. Gods are useless. And perhaps all he ever wanted was to die. Even if his death brought instability to the heavens, it didn't matter anymore. He realized if he died, the red arrow he held would vanish too. And that would be the final message, the final truth passed on to the professor. And so, at that very moment, while the angel wasn't looking, Nakahama made his choice. With no hesitation, he pierced himself with the white arrow. The moment he fell, the god collapsed. The angel that followed him turned to ash. And in that exact moment, the red arrow in the professor's hand vanished into thin air. That's when he understood. Nakahama had spoken, through silence. But before the professor could even react, humanity began to fade, fast. A terrifying speed of disappearance. In just a blink, every life form vanished, and Earth became a lifeless, dead planet.